So it's another day, another troubling tweet from President Donald Trump, basically threatening protesters that might meet him at his Tulsa, Oklahoma rally. Earlier today, he said the following. I'm going to read it out. Any protesters, anarchists, agitators, looters, or lowlifes who are going to Oklahoma, please understand you will not be treated like you have been in New York, Seattle, or Minneapolis. It will be a much different scene, ! And you can see what Donald Trump is doing there. He's holding a rally in Tulsa. And of course, the timing has already made a lot of people less than happy. A Tulsa rally by a candidate like Trump that's been hostile to racial justice on Juneteenth, the day that celebrates the liberation of African Americans from slavery, this tie into the city where in the early 1900s, there were, attacks against the black community systematically on what was called then Black Wall Street. This is a purposeful signal by Donald Trump to his base about who he thinks he's better than and about what his goal is about stamping down any opposition to him and his far-right ideology, be it from African Americans, black people, or from protesters broadly defined. And we have to look at this tweet because Donald Trump isn't simply saying, look, those of you who protest unpeacefully, you're going to be held to account. I can agree or disagree. You can agree or disagree about whether or not the quote-unquote looting was bad or whether it's even something that we should preoccupy ourselves with in these debates. But the fact of the matter is, Donald Trump threw in the word protester here. That is not a crime. There is nothing wrong with protesting. Those other things you might say, look, the people are protesting, but they're doing so in an unproductive way. Calling out protesters carte blanche, just overall, as a canvas claim is very troubling. No American president should ever say that protesters are going to get rough treatment and be proud of it, because that's the implication here. Donald Trump is saying, as he's noted in his calls with the governors, that blue state governors, that blue state mayors, people who lead the states and cities, New York, Minneapolis, Seattle, other cities like that they are being far too lenient, too weak with regard to their protesters. They're not letting their police officers flex their muscle. They're not letting the police officers defend the city. They're making the police officers worried that doing their job will get them in trouble. And Trump is saying that in the good old America, the good old South, they don't act like that. And protesters will be treated with police contempt and excessive force. And he's proud of that. And so this is a warning. Don't you dare protest me, or you will feel, my wrath and the wrath of police that support me and the wrath of my supporters that support me. This is an anti-democratic claim by Donald Trump. It's a claim that flies in the face of basic democracy, basic liberty, basic freedoms, the principle of the American Constitution and Bill of Rights, which protects freedom of assembly, which is what protesting is. That is an act of free assembly, especially when done peacefully, as the vast majority of protests have been. And as we've seen, when people are unpeaceful, more often than not, it's the cops who are being unpeaceful. It also flies in the face of democratic standards the world over. The United States would never tolerate another president from a supposedly quote-unquote backwater authoritarian regime saying this, saying, don't you dare protest or we're going to crack down. You're not going to get treated like you would in the United States or in Canada or in Western Europe. This is, our country, and we're not going to tolerate you speaking up against me, the president, or me, the dictator, or what have you. This is it's really troubling. There is nothing wrong with protesting at all. Donald Trump is basically trying to criminalize, if only socially, within his own movement, the act of protesting him. And he's basically saying, in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the real Americans live, you won't be allowed to act like you do in New York and Seattle and those sorts of cities. It's a dangerous road he's traveling down. It's a dangerous, dangerous road. And again, the symbolism, Juneteenth, Oklahoma, Tulsa, on a day that's supposed to be about the liberation of black people. And in a city where not that long ago, honestly, a century ago, a little bit more, a black community was destroyed, was absolutely destroyed, by the white majority of that city. And so Trump putting his rally there, I think, is a symbolism to take over Juneteenth with the imagery of a white majority destroying a vibrant black community. And I think that Donald Trump telling his supporters that, those opposing them will not be welcomed is a hark back to what happened in Tulsa. So Trump is not there to celebrate Juneteenth. He's there to trample it. And he's there to trample the rights of anyone who dares oppose him.